So we are starting out getting ready to prep for some major meal prepping. So we're prepping for the prepping. And this is 2 pounds of home ground beef, 1 pound of breakfast sausage, and 2 onions, 1 green pepper, and about 3 teaspoons of garlic, plus salt and pepper. And I'm going to let the crock pot do the work for me. Okay, so I actually did a little bit of recording apparently while I was doing it, but this week we are talking about all things Halloween. So we have spent the week eating great Halloween foods, and they are, just something fun. I have this amazing pan that I bring out every year, and the kids absolutely love it. It's the skull pan, and they look forward to it every year. So I decided to change up things this year and add a few more Halloween items to the food list. So getting ready for Halloween, we tried some new recipes. So the first one we're doing is the Halloween jack-o'-lantern stuffed peppers. And I think this one is especially fun because the original jack-o'-lanterns were not actually pumpkins that people think. The Celts actually carved turnips to ward off evil spirits. And so having a smaller fruit like a pepper I thought would be a really fun idea. So I ended up trying that, and that's the crock pot food that you saw right in the beginning a few seconds ago. That is actually going to serve for 2 recipes that we're making. So I went ahead and just let the crock pot cook all this yummy pepper, onion, sausage, beef base that I can then use for 2 different recipes. The first being the stuffed pepper recipe here, and the second being a taco ring that we're going to make here in a few minutes. So doing the peppers was actually very easy. The only different thing is that you need to carve the face before you take the top off and pull the seeds out, because it leaves the integrity of the pepper together so that it doesn't get all wobbly when you're trying to do the face. So that is something that I learned, that you definitely need to carve the face first while that pepper structure is intact. And a very sharp knife works really well. This knife was actually brand new, and so it was perfect. I don't think peppers would have been part of the original foods, because if I am not mistaken, peppers and tomatoes are New World foods. They came from America to the Old World. So the original Roman and Celts who started some of these traditions, I don't think they would have had those. If I'm not mistaken, I will have to double check that, or if somebody knows in the comments. But if I'm pretty sure that peppers and tomatoes, those nightshade fruits, are New World foods that migrated to the Old World. So these stuffed peppers definitely would not be a traditional food. Now, a lot of our, what we would consider traditional foods back then, they used a lot of root vegetables for the harvest festivals. Hey, look, subscribe. So, because that was what the original Halloween festivals were from, was that Samhain Celtic harvest festivals. It was the end of harvest, beginning of winter. So the foods that they had been bringing in were usually like heavy on the root vegetables and things like, kale. So I would say the original Halloween feasts would probably look more like a traditional Southern American Thanksgiving versus, what we typically see around here for Halloween, because we've just become so commercialized and convenient food. So I would think, like the collard greens and the stewed turnips and the pumpkin and yams, things like that, meats, sausages would be more similar to a Thanksgiving food at the end of harvest. Definitely not candy. So the sausage stuffing or stuffed pepper stuffing is super easy. It's some of that beef, sausage, pepper, onion mix mixed in with some cooked rice and some cheese. If I had had a can of like Rotel tomatoes with the peppers in it, I probably would have added that. But I did not want to get out a jar of like home canned tomatoes just to add a little bit of tomato flavor to this because most of my stuff is in quart jars. I probably could have added like some of my canned bruschetta, but it's very Italian season based, so I didn't want to add it to the pepper flavors. So I just threw in some ketchup and some Worcestershire. But I think if you had them, either the Rotel with the green chilies or even like the fire roasted tomatoes would have been really good, but I didn't have any. So we're just adding the cheese. And the one thing I did not do that I should have is keep the tops of my peppers. I am very much in the habit of putting them directly into like the compost bin or the trash. I try to compost, and so they went right into the scrap bucket with all the other scraps and stuff. And so I didn't want to, by the time I realized like, oh, I probably should have kept these to put on top, I didn't want to get them out of that mess. It just wasn't happening. So my peppers are topless, but that's okay. And this mix actually went a long way. I did 6 peppers, and that's what most recipes do call for. And these are not my peppers. I did not have any peppers this big. We are late in the season. Most of our peppers are done, and the ones that we are still getting are very, very small. So I did go to the store and buy these peppers. And then you just put them in a dish, and you're going to top it with tin foil and cook it. I want to say it was like 40 minutes, which creates steam. There they are. Aren't they cute? They would have looked really cute with tops on them, but there they are. And then you take the tin foil off and put them back in for like 10 minutes to give them that nice crispy crust on top. So now I'm taking the rest of that crock pot of beef mixture, and I'm adding taco seasoning. At first I only added 1 packet, but there was enough beef that I ended up going back and adding a second packet of it, and that helped soak up some of that residual moisture as well. And then, see, there we go, there's the second one. I wasn't sure if I had shown it or not. And then I mashed it really, really good to make sure it was like a super small, fine consistency, almost like a dog food consistency per se. And then we did go ahead and add some cheese to this one as well. Now, most recipes for this spider taco ring, and I say it in quotes because mine looks more like a crab. It's supposed to be a spider. It calls for like 3 cans of crescent roll dough. But because I am completely off of processed foods, I made my own crescent roll dough. And this is the first time I've ever done it. And I used like half whole wheat flour and half all-purpose. So that's why it's kind of very brown looking, because of the whole wheat. And I am going to do a whole different video on dough. I already have it in the works. So I'm going to add the crescent roll dough to that video. That way you have all the different doughs in one video that I've been working with since I've gone off of the processed food. So this was quite a process, and it would have made this video super long had I done all, the dough recipes along with the Halloween recipes. So that will be in a separate video, but you can use store-bought crescent rolls or make your own. So this is just the very end process of me cutting that specific dough into like the triangles that I need for the ring. I did want to show that so that it would be very close to what you would use, whether that's store-bought or homemade. And so you're just really going to form a ring. And I probably should have used, I have a square cast iron pan that would have probably been better, or like a pizza stone would have been good, but I was just using a little baking pan. And so I did go back and take some of that extra dough and line it on the inside. You'll see it right there, to make that inside a little bit wider, just for that meat mixture. I tried to cut out and fast forward a lot this video, just to cut down on all the space in between that I've had in my past few, but working with multiple recipes, fitting them in there, you know, they get really long, and so it's hard to get it just right. I'm working on it, but here we just add that meat mixture directly to your dough, your uncooked dough. And I was really surprised. It did cook all the way through, but just know that you're going to have to let it cook really well. And you don't want that meat mixture too wet. And so mine actually had dried. And then you just take those little corners and roll them over into that wreath. And now this was a very popular thing. I want to say, oh my gosh, early 2000s. Pampered Chef was huge. And I remember my sister and I had a party when we were living in the farmhouse together. And then I think I had another party, like right after my husband and I got married. And the Pampered Chef parties, they always did these rings because they were so popular. So there's the unfinished. And the legs, actually, the dough was kind of heavy. And the legs kind of fell off. So it looked more like a crab, but you saw the little picture of it finished. So anyway, but I never tried the taco ring back in the Pampered Chef days. They always made like this chicken salad ring, and it was so good. It was one of my favorite things ever. And I don't know what happened, but I just, sometime like right when I had kids, I never made another ring ever. So it was kind of fun to see and resurrect this whole Pampered Chef ring with the spider taco ring. Here is the pan. This is what comes out every Halloween, and I will try to find it. I think I got mine from Williams-Sonoma, but I'm pretty sure they have them on Amazon now. I mean, Amazon has everything, so I will try to find a link for it and put it in the description box. But we love this pan. I've been using it for several years now, and it's become one of the traditions for my kids. Is they know October is here, fall is here, Halloween is here when this pan comes out. And the one thing I typically do is the pizzas. They love the pizzas. It was the first thing that I saw and went and bought this pan for, because when you break it open, the pizza sauce is like blood. And so that is one of our traditions here, is that they have to have pizza skulls at least once when we're getting close to Halloween. And so we broke it out, and I used homemade dough. This was my first time using homemade pizza dough. So I did get it a little bit thick. I needed to thin it out a little bit more, and I used homemade pizza sauce. Again, these are the first time I've done either of those things. I've always used like pre-made sauce and pre-made dough, because it was the fun thing of the pan. But now I can't eat those things, and I'm trying to keep my family from eating as much processed food as well. I'm a little bit more lenient on like their snacks and things sometimes, because I don't want them to completely revolt on me. But this, and you can put any toppings in here that you want. I had leftover pepperoni in my freezer, and I wanted to get it used and get it done. It was just like a third of a bag of pepperoni. Perfect for making a few pizza skulls. We got one pan, which is 6, and then had enough left over to do like a small little pizza. Plus, my daughter was eating them the whole time. She was actually doing this. I don't know if you can tell the difference between our hands, but she did some of this. Now, when you use the store-bought rolls, I want to say it takes 2 of them, and you can like lay it out all the way flat, cut it, punch it down in there, and then when you get done, you can lay the other one over flat and then just cut out around it, and that works pretty well. I basically did the same thing using the homemade dough because I made 2 and pretty much did that exact same, but my dough was a lot thicker on the back. So, and it wasn't as neatly done because I didn't have like the nice neat square edges. So it was a little bit of fiddling around with it. So a little bit different, but honestly it tastes better.
Get it right.
Do people just eat straight up mozzarella?
No, they usually do something like put them with basil and tomatoes.
Having a conversation with my daughter. We had some really good quality time together this week while my husband and son were working at the fair. So here's that little bit of leftover dough. Oh, so I didn't use the second dough. I just used leftover. I tried to get this one thinner. Now you could also use crescent roll dough. You could use probably canned biscuits. I don't think I've ever tried canned biscuits, but coming up next, I actually do a variation and I use homemade biscuit dough. So you could easily, I know you can easily do biscuits. Biscuits actually turn out really well in this, as I found out this week. And so I think you could use canned biscuit dough. Super easy. I actually enjoyed using the biscuit dough in this pan better because you could mold it like Play-Doh. And whereas the pizza dough has that stretch, and so it would keep shrinking back. So there's the pizza skulls. And you can like dip them or, you know, lay them in the pizza sauce so the red's all around them. It's really cool. And then here we are making a quick, super quick biscuit dough, which I do show you because biscuit dough is so easy. You can just do it in the food processor, except my ding dong self made a double batch and my food processor is not big enough for a double batch. So I got it to a certain point and then had to put it out on the counter to form my dough ball. But I mean, it's okay. You can also just mix it up with like a pastry cutter, which is what I used to do. And I still use my pastry cutter, but like a pastry cutter and a Dutch whisk works really well. But I've gotten really into using my food processor to make dough because I love the way it like cuts the butter in. And so it's butter and a little bit of Crisco and flour and buttermilk. I was using self-rising flour, so I didn't even have to add in like the baking powder or whatever. So easy. I know a lot of people don't use self-rising flour. I used to use it exclusively, but then over the years I learned that that's why like my cookies weren't right and stuff because of the rise. You can't control the amount of rise when you're using self-rising flour. So I've actually switched to all-purpose flour for most things. And I'm getting into using like the whole wheat. I haven't gone to the way of like grinding my own wheat berries or using spelt flour or things like that. I would like to experiment with that some more, but that's just not in my budget of time right now. But I do love using self-rising flour for biscuits because it's so quick. And sometimes you just need something quick. So it comes together really easily. And there we go. I was like, where did I go? I thought I cut all the space parts out. I must have been grabbing a roller. And I will say, one of the tricks to rolling out dough that I have learned is you have got to keep that roller dry. You have to keep flour on it because as it rolls your dough, if you come into any like wet spots, it'll start sticking. So you've got to keep adding that flour to that roller or on top of the dough. So with this, with the biscuit dough, I literally just cut the strips instead of trying to put like the whole dough over the pan like you would the pizza dough. I just actually cut strips and laid it down and cut it out and then kind of formed it. And so really, once I learned that, I figured out that, you know, you could really just do like a dough ball. So I think like your canned biscuits would work fine. But biscuits are so easy to make that I don't know why you wouldn't just grab some buttermilk and flour and make it versus opening a can of biscuits and fearing for your life when you hear the pop, you know, like you anticipate it and it never pops when you think it's going to pop, and it always gets you. Like, maybe it's just me. I don't know. But yeah, you can, this dough especially, it was just so easy to form, and they came out beautifully. And it wasn't overly thick with the filling. You had more space for filling because you were able to press it down in there very well. So you got all the detail of the pan. And then I had cooked this chicken actually overnight before I cooked the beef. And I already pulled the chicken off the bone. So I used that food processor that just had the dough in it, since it's going in the raw dough anyway, to chop up that chicken really, really smooth. And then added salt, pepper. I should have put some garlic powder in there. And then cream of chicken soup, which I should use homemade. I haven't got that far yet. So that's the one thing I really should not be eating. I was so good making all my homemade dough. But that was the one thing that I couldn't get around. And then you add your cheese and you blend it. I just used that food processor to go ahead and blend it right back up. And then I added some vegetables. Original cheesy chicken cups. I think it was a Weight Watchers recipe back in the late 90s, early 2000s when I came across it. It did not call for any kind of vegetable or anything, and it was like low-fat cheese, low-fat biscuits, whatever. But I've turned it into, over the years, more of almost like a quick, easy, cheesy pot pie filling kind of thing. It has morphed. I've used broccoli. I've used other vegetables. This was just some steamed fresh mixed vegetables. Worked fine. And with these, I did not end up putting a biscuit dough topping on the back because I didn't want that extra dough. So what I did is I put cheese over the top, hoping that it would form like a cheesy crust on the top to hold all that filling in. And it did. And it worked perfectly. And they were amazing. There you go. So you can see the back of that on the end. Yep. And it just holds it right in. But it's not this just gooey perfection. So I actually like those better than the pizza skulls now. And this is the first time I had tried that. So I'm super excited about those. And now we are moving on to the Inappropriate Ghost Mini Meatloaves. And I did not realize how inappropriate they would be until I started making them. And I was editing this video earlier and I was like, oh wow, this may not be safe for children to watch. So if you have children watching this video, you might want to send them to another room on these. I'm just saying. Just saying. Now, you can make meatloaf many ways. You can take this recipe and be as quick and easy as you want or as healthy as you want. You could use breadcrumbs. I used oatmeal. You can make it super easy and not have to add in this onion or salt and pepper or breadcrumbs or any of that and just dump a box of stuffing in your meatloaf. That's a very popular way to make meatloaf. I, again, am trying to stay away from as much processed food. Obviously not condensed cream chicken soup, but, you know, here we go. So I decided to make a quick homemade meatloaf. So it was onion, oatmeal, salt, pepper, egg, Worcestershire. And I think that's it. I didn't put ketchup in it. Because with these, you typically want to serve them like you would a meatball, like on a marinara sauce or a barbecue sauce. I think the recipe, and I will go link it, but I believe the recipe has like a ketchup-y barbecue sauce that they put on the bottom. I can't remember. We might do a pizza sauce because I have leftover pizza sauce that needs to be used. And then, of course, I'm using my home ground beef. So these, in essence, are not that bad for you. It's pretty much like a homemade meatball. And since I'm using all, you know, good ingredients and a little bit of oatmeal and very lean meat, this is not worrying me at all. There was like hardly any grease when I baked these. Now, you're going to have to form your meat. I got to watch my hands because this is the problem with the video. Into your ghost shapes and put them on a tray to bake. So normally I would mix up my meatloaf with like a Dutch whisk or, you know, a big heavy spoon or something like that. But because I'm going to get my hands in there to form the ghosts, I just went ahead and mixed it up. I washed my hands really well and mixed it up with my hands. And I got 2 trays because I wasn't sure how many it was going to make. I made them a little bit big. And so I only ended up using the 1 tray. I think they would have looked better if I had made them a little bit smaller. More in line, because your provolone sheet is, you know, only so big. And you want the provolone to go all the way to the bottom. And that is where mine failed, is my provolone only went on the top. So I made them a little bit big. And I was like, okay, so we're forming these ghosts. It's kind of like forming a meatball. And let me move this into the camera better so that they can see how I'm forming the ghost. And I was editing the video and I went back as I was getting ready to do this voiceover. And cue really horrible, slow, adult entertainment music right now. I apologize. Go ahead and clutch your pearls because this is highly... We're forming a meatball, turning it into a ghost. I don't recommend filming that. I think, you know, the meatloaf needs its own OnlyFans page or something. I don't know. But there we are. I need my pearls. Okay. I'm just going to sit here and drink coffee while this meatloaf enjoys that. Do I lean into it? I don't know. I'm a little morally torn on that. It's like, do I embrace it for an algorithm, or do I just like cut it completely out? I don't know. Somebody will enjoy it, I'm sure. And who am I to ruin their fun? Okay. So get all your little ghosties formed. Make them a little bit smaller. So you want that cheese to completely cover them. So don't do them as big as I did. That's what he said. And I did 2 pounds of meat. depending on your family size, you probably only need one. And I want to say I got 8 or 9. 8, 9, 10. Now I can't remember. Maybe it'll show me here in a second. If I can see the whole tray. But really one is a serving. Now if you made them a lot smaller, you might do 2. But the way I made them, very obscenely, they were big enough for 1 to be a serving. And so you're going to bake them first until you reach like 150 degrees. And then you take them out and you put the cheese over them and bake them for just like 1 or 2 more minutes until that cheese gets melty. So here they are. So 5, 6, 7, 8. My 2 pounds of beef made 8 of them. I couldn't remember if there was 4 on each row or 3 on each row. I remember the couple in the center. But see, there's like no grease at all whatsoever. That's how lean this meat is. It's from my dad's farm. And then the recipe did say you put the cheese over all of them. And then if you have extra, you cut it in half and put the little half pieces on the top because you want more cheese at the head. And that's where you're going to cut the eyeballs and stuff too. So I did do that. I had enough cheese. Just when you think you're getting really good at editing and like fast forwarding things and cutting out unnecessary, blocks, you do a video and you go back and you're doing the voiceover and you're realizing like, I could have done better. I could have totally shortened this down, and then like for me, I don't always know what I'm going to say. I know I'm going to voice over, but I don't know how it's going to go. So I could be running my mouth the whole time and need the extra time. But today I don't, apparently. I mean, these are really simple recipes. These are for fun. There's not a lot to them. So once you get them out and they've melted down, you just take a really sharp knife and poke like the 3 holes so it looks like a ghost screaming or whatever. And they're really cute. My husband saw them and made an even more inappropriate comment about them. So the cheese did not detract from the phallic symbolism of them at all. It just kind of enhanced the ejection from the top. But you can make adorable little meatloaf ghosts. In this house, apparently we make inappropriate ghost mini meatloafs. And that's okay. That is what they are. Welcome to our house. All right. Moving on. So I already had, I don't know if I lost the footage or if I just did not film it, but I already had a pound of sausage on the stove cooking. So I am literally just taking some eggs and making some scrambled eggs because you can do, this is just a breakfast bake. We're making a breakfast style mummy. You can do whatever you want. You could do hash browns, you could do bacon, you could do whatever. I am just doing sausage and eggs, and I meant to add cheese to the eggs once they were done cooking. I forgot. I ended up adding cheese to the outside of the mummy. Worked great. Didn't miss it. It's okay. All things good. So I'm using leftover crescent roll dough. Since I made way too much with this homemade recipe to make apparently I did not turn the volume down on this. To make the crescent roll dough, or let me back up. To make the taco ring, it called for 3 cans of crescent roll dough. Well, I made a homemade crescent roll dough. I wasn't sure how far it would go, so I made 3 batches of it. Well, each batch is about equal to 3 cans of crescent roll dough. So I have a lot of crescent roll dough. So this is some of that leftover. And remember, always put flour on your dough and your rolling pin. And this was cold because with crescent roll dough, you laminate it. So you're folding it and folding it. You want those little pockets of butter. So you have to keep this dough really cold. So I had put this dough, kept it in the refrigerator overnight, and it was a very cold dough. It was like a brick. So it was a little bit harder to get going than most of your doughs will be. So I really did kind of struggle with this a little bit. Once I got it going, it was fine. But I had to keep that rolling pin and dough with extra flour, so all that butter and stuff, as I was rolling it out, it did not start sticking to that rolling pin. And then you're going to want, the way I did it, I did 1 large mummy because I was wanting to try this dough out and try the effect out to see if I liked it. You can do, if you get like crescent rolls at the store, you could just do individual squares. So you could make a couple different like Pop-Tart size mummies, whereas I made 1 large one. But the basic of how you do it would be the same. You would put like 2 crescent roll, store-bought crescent rolls. They form a rectangle. So you kind of smash them together or roll and pin them together so there's not that crease in them. And you would put those down. And then you would take a couple more, roll them out, and cut strips to form the mummy. Whereas I just did 1 long strip. And then I actually have cut it since this video. I cut it into individual portions. And then I used the extra dough and rolled out and cut my mummy strips. And I didn't make them perfect because mummy strips are not going to be perfect. I will say this colored dough I think worked really well with it being that brown aged look from the whole wheat. But you just put once you have your little squares, or excuse me, rectangles, or your long rectangle if you're doing one, you put your filling in there, which mine is just sausage and scrambled eggs. That's it. Nothing fancy. You could probably make this into a pizza one. You could make it into anything really. But I was looking for a breakfast because we go through like the breakfast burritos and stuff around here. So I wanted to make a breakfast one. So sausage and eggs. Fill it all the way up to cover that completely. She's already at dance. I normally try to film this during the day when the house is quiet and no one's really in and out, but it's later in the afternoon because it's just been such a busy day. So my husband was like walking by like, she's got to go to dance. So I already took my daughter to dance and I came home. Usually I don't, because I don't like spinning the gas, and I'll just wait on her even though she's there for like an hour or two. Actually on Thursdays, yeah. Mondays, 2.5 hours. Thursdays, anyway, depends on the day. There's a couple days she's there like 30 minutes. Today's a longer day. And I'll usually like try to coordinate errands that are in that area, or a friend of mine whose daughter is also in dance with her. We go walk. But today I needed to get home and do this so I could get this posted, because I'm trying to be very consistent. So this will post tonight. But he's like, she's got to go to dance. And I'm like, nope, I already took her. So I could have cut this out, but this is our life. This is what happens. So then you're just going to take those strips and piece them over. And you don't want to go sideways or, the same direction. You want to kind of put some this way and some this way and some this way and layer them over to get that mummy effect. Kind of like, making a lattice on a pie or something, but not as even. And then I did do an egg wash on this because I wanted that kind of crispy top. And I tucked all my ends under and like pinched them so they would stay, which I did not do very well on that spider ring. But I think too, the dough was kind of thick and I twisted it to make the legs. And so when they started baking, they just kind of fell over because it was a heavy dough. So I think that was more of the problem. And then because I had forgotten the cheese, like I mentioned, I ended up taking some Colby Jack slices and just making a few strips. And I didn't do it over the whole thing. I just did it in a few spots. And I thought, it's going to be okay. That color and everything should blend well. And it actually worked great. I'm sure I post a picture of it here in a second. So it worked out wonderfully. And there you go. So I was going to do one more, so I'd have like the 7 deadly sins, the 7 sinful recipes. But I have these little autumn hand pie forms from years ago. Couldn't find them anywhere. So I was going to make little hand pies. Could not find my molds. So you're getting 6 fun Halloween treats. Halloween recipes. This is the story of my life. This is how it goes. Good intentions, good intentions. But I hope you enjoyed this one. It was fun. We had a lot of fun with these recipes. And I will see you next week. Thanks for joining me.